This is CasaOS, and we've talked about CasaOS in the past in a couple of different videos as an alternative way to manage a Docker server rather than using something like Portainer or Yacht. Now, since a bunch of you probably got Raspberry Pis for Christmas and you're not sure where to start, I thought we would actually continue this series by taking a look at how to monitor your network latency across the internet as well as your speed across the internet with a couple of different containers that we're going to deploy in this video. So the first Docker container that we're going to take a look at in this video is Speedtest Tracker from Henry Whitaker. Then we'll set up a Linux server Smokeping container so that we can monitor our latency by pinging several different sites and finding out what our network latency is based on those numbers. But before we get into installing all of this stuff, we've got to pay some bills, so let's take a look at today's video sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Linode, the largest independent cloud computing provider. If you don't want to, or can't for whatever reason, self-host applications the way we talk about on this channel, Linode provides virtual servers that make it easy and affordable for you to host anything in the cloud. You can set up any of the applications that they have available in their marketplace with just a few clicks, or you can set up your own Docker VPS and install basically whatever you'd like in a Docker container. They have load balancers and firewalls available to help keep your apps online and safe. If you run into any trouble getting set up, Linode comes with amazing 24/7 customer support by phone or ticket, along with hundreds of guides and tutorials to help you get started. Sign up today at linode.com/dvtech and get a $100 60-day credit on your new Linode account. Links are in the description. So here we are on my desktop, our dashboard for CasaOS, and there are some differences since the last video I made. They've actually done a big update for the user interface, and they've made some changes that I want to address just real quickly before we jump into too much here. So, for instance, up here at the top left, if we, right up here where it says CPU and RAM, if we click that down, we can actually see how much CPU is being used by each of our individual Docker containers here. Also, there is an option for RAM. However, for some reason at the time of recording, the RAM statistics aren't working on ARM devices based on what I've been able to see at this point. So at least for now, you can kind of get an idea of what your different containers are using for CPU usage, and I think that's a good start. If we come up to the top left, the account hasn't changed, but if we go into settings, now we can actually change the default search engine from DuckDuckGo, or we can choose between DuckDuckGo, Google, and Bing. Our language, we've got a couple of different options there. Here we can actually edit our web UI port. In a previous video, I showed how to change that by modifying a configuration file and then making some changes. They've actually just gone ahead and decided to make this editable via just clicking edit here, changing this, clicking submit. Probably have to reboot, but then you can change the port to basically whatever you'd like it to be. So if you're not seeing these options in your setup, it's entirely possible that you are not on the current version, which is 0.2.3. If you're on an older version, you won't see these options, but they've actually made it very, very easy to update to the newest version by just SSHing into your device and then just rerunning this command. It should just at that point update everything to the newest version. You should be ready to go without affecting any of your other stuff. So the first thing we want to take a look at here is Speedtest Tracker by Henry Whitaker. And on this chart, you can actually see all of my speed test results, when they happened, you know, what the upload speed was, what the download speed was by coming down here. And it gives a nice little graph to kind of show what's going on there. Over on the right side, we can see what our ping was for whichever server it decided to connect to for the speed test. And then below here at the bottom, we can see that it's so far we've run 12 speed tests today. So if we scroll back up, we can manually run a test by clicking right here where it says test again. We can click on, home is where we are now. If we click on all tests, we'll get a list of all of our tests that have been run for however long, depending on how long that history is. You can then click more and get some more information as far as, which host that it actually hit, the server ID, which ISP it went from. So you can get some good information there as well. And then if we come over here to settings, we can change the app name. We can have it automatically scheduled. Here I've got it running every 13 minutes, which I know is kind of weird, but because I also didn't want it, I wanted a smaller chance of my speed test affecting my network latency tests. I tried to give just weird numbers so that they would be less likely to interfere with each other when they're running their tests. And if you're not sure about how to run cron like this, there's actually crontab guru that you can just say, you can put in whatever information you want and it will generate that cron for you that you can just paste into here. You can see that this was originally 30, that's every 30th minute. I changed it to every 13 minutes. So that's what I did there. You can put in comma separated values for which server IDs that you want to pick, or you can just let it pick randomly by leaving it blank. You can show averages, minimums, maximums. Your graphs, you can change what your graphs look like. You can get an idea of what tables are here. I believe you can actually rearrange these in whatever order you'd like your tables to be sorted by. Notifications, there are webhooks for Slack, Telegram for bots and chats. You can test notifications. So good information in here. Next, we can do health checks. So basically, you can sign up for a free health checks account, put in your account or your UUID here, and then if it doesn't run in an allotted amount of time, it will send you a notification saying, hey, your test didn't run. Over here, you can use an InfluxDB if you want to do that. You can just reset everything back to factory settings, I guess. And then if you wanted to, you could also run a backup or restore your settings. So before we jump into our next container as far as what that looks like and that sort of thing, let's actually take a step back and take a look at how to install Speedtest Tracker in CasaOS. So in order to do that, the first thing I want to do here is actually just come over here and delete or uninstall this application because we're going to take a look at how to install it. So we'll go ahead and click on install, or uninstall rather. And then what we have to do so now it's gone and we can actually see it's been removed from here and from here. That's good. So what we want to do next is actually get logged into our server. So now the reason I wanted to log into my server here is because, yes, we deleted it, we uninstalled it from here, but what it doesn't do is actually, oops, darn it, home. And then we do an ls, and then go into configs, do an ls. Here we can see that Speedtest is still there, Speedtest Tracker, rather. You can see I was looking at a few different options for this, and I found that Speedtest Tracker was the one I wanted to show this morning. So it did not actually delete the folder there. So if I try to reinstall this, it's just going to pick up where it left off, which it oftentimes is a great option. But for the sake of doing a fresh install, this isn't going to work for us. So what I want to do is we'll do an rm, actually we'll do a sudo rm rf Speedtest Tracker, like so. And now that folder is gone. So now we can actually go back through the process of installing Speedtest Tracker in CasaOS. Now, again, I'm only showing this as a demonstration that just because you uninstall something in CasaOS, it doesn't mean that it actually deletes all of the data from your system. So next thing we want to do is we're going to come up to here. We're going to click on Add App or Plus App right there. Then we're going to do a custom install, and then we're just going to fill in the blanks here. So our first thing here is going to be our Docker image. This is the Henry Whitaker 3/speedtest-tracker. And then here I had to specify the ARM tag on this. If we actually come over to this one right here, and we go over to tags, we can see that the latest tag is just Linux AMD 64. If we want the ARM version for Raspberry Pi in this case, we would just add dev-arm to our tag, like we did right here. So the next thing we want to do is give it a name. So I'll do that. If you want to, you can put a custom URL in here for the icon that will show up on the dashboard. I'm just going to leave this as it is. I don't really care what it looks like, but you might want to change that URL to be something more relevant. Below that, we're going to put in the port that will access the user interface on. In this case, it's going to be 8765. That's actually taken from over here. Right there, actually. Now you can make that 8765 whatever you'd like it to be, but it works for me. The network can stay as bridge. That is perfectly fine. Ports, we're going to add a port to be 8765 and port 80. So basically, this web UI tells the icon on your dashboard where to link to, and this down here tells the system what ports to use when deploying the container. Next, we're going to add a volume. Now, if we go back to here, we see that I am in, home/configs. That's where I store all of my Docker stuff for this instance. So it'll be /home/configs/ speedtest tracker, like so. And then the container over here is just /config, like so. So I can just go ahead and paste that in there like so. Next, we're going to need some environmental variables. The first one will be time zone. So it'll be TZ, and for me, it'll be America/Denver. And then we're going to need darn it, I did that all wrong. Then we're going to need a couple more of those. So we're going to need PUID and PGID. I'll do PGID first, and then PUID. And then we're actually going to need one more to say that we agree to the Ookla or the Ookla ULA GDPR terms and conditions. Definitely go read those to make sure you actually agree with them. But so basically, what we're going to take a look at here is going to be our PGID and our PUID. Those are groups and users, respectively. And because we've got just on this setup, we've got one user that is our Pi user. It may be different. You may have set yours up differently. And if that's the case, then for this next step, you're going to use whatever username you use to log in to your Raspberry Pi. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to clear my screen, and I'm just going to do ID space, and then I'm using the username Pi, but you'll put in whatever username you use here and press enter. And here we can see the UID and the GID are both 1000. So those are the numbers that we're going to put in for these values right here. And then for the GDPR, make sure you actually agree with it. But then if you do, just type in true right there. And that's basically it there. You can adjust the memory limit, the CPU shares, the restart policy. I like to leave on always, that's fine. And then if you wanted to, you could put in a little description here about what this application is, if you're not sure, for future reference. Once we're done with all of that, we can just scroll down and click on install. All right, so now we can see that our CPU is doing some stuff up here still. Looks like it's calming down pretty quickly. And we've also got our RAM here. So if I click this, hopefully, if everything goes correctly. Oh, nope, it's still loading, so we're going to give it a minute. So while this is kind of doing its thing, the other thing we can do is come over to here to the three little dots next to the application, click on Settings, then come up here to where it says Terminal and Logs, and then here we can just do stuff in the terminal for that particular container, or we can come over to here and take a look at the logs and see what it's doing, and just kind of follow along as it's doing that. It looks like this is now done, so let's actually test and see if it really is. Hey, there we go. So right now, the ping, the download, the upload, it all lists as not a number. And that's because we haven't run any tests yet. So let's go ahead and do that now. So the test has been queued. This page will refresh when the test has finished.
A few moments later.
There we go. So here we've actually completed our first test. We can see that my ping was 14.7 milliseconds, my download was 389, and my upload was 34.6. Now, my internet's actually faster than that. Unfortunately, I've got some old hardware that doesn't let me fully take advantage of all of my download speeds. So hopefully at some point I will get a newer UniFi device that will allow me to take advantage of my gig download speeds. But this is what we've got for now, and we can prove that it's working. So if you just leave this running, you will then start to generate the charts and the graphs that I showed earlier in this video. So that is how to install Speedtest Tracker from Henry Whitaker in CasaOS. The next thing I actually want to do here is this. I'm going to go to Settings, and then I'm going to export the app file, and I'm going to make this available for certain tiers over on Patreon. So if you'd like to be able to just download this file and import it into your system and have it ready to go, you've always got an option to jump over to Patreon, become a patron, and get these files that are exclusively for patrons over there. So the next thing that we want to take a look at here is actually something called Smokeping. Now this is the Linux server.io version of this, which we love Linux server here. They do a great job of making sure that all of their applications are very compatible with basically anything that's out there, whatever kind of hardware you want to run it on. It should run without issue. So they're great about that. So let's take a look at what Smokeping is, what it does. So if we come over to here, like it says here, is a network latency grapher. And so basically what you can do is take a look at charts here and see, what it considers the most interesting destinations and see how many milliseconds your server takes to ping that particular institution, whether it's, in this case, CERN or OpenDNS. Looks like they've got a few different CERN options there. We can go to internet sites and we can take a look at what does it look like when we ping Facebook or YouTube or Juniper Broadcasting or Google, or you got lots of options in here as far as what it will ping. And what I actually really like about this, you can break these down even further, and you can kind of see what's going on here for the last 3 hours, the last 30 hours, the last 10 days, the last 360 days, for all of these different services. And you can break it down by location. I'm not sure what's going on there. Here we go. Let's take a look at MIT. So for instance, and you can do this with any of these charts, if you click on this, it will take you in and let you see more details about that particular server that you're pinging. Or you can, I've been having issues between the hours of, let's say, 4 o'clock and 4:45. You can zoom in on these and get a better idea of what was going on in those individual time frames. And this is a great way to see if maybe your games are lagging, maybe Netflix or YouTube is lagging, maybe you're having some issues. You can come in here and get an idea of, are your ping times really high? Is your latency really high? And kind of get an idea, is it me? Is it them? What's going on? This is another great way to troubleshoot your network to find out which side the issue may be on. We can also take a look at DNS, different DNS providers, whether it's Google, Cloudflare, OpenDNS, Level 3, Quad9. You can also take a look at all of these different providers and not only see maybe they're having an issue, maybe you're having an issue. If I take a look at, at Google here, it looks like they had a couple of spikes, kind of right here. So let's actually take a look. Oops, let's go into here. And we can kind of get an idea maybe of what's going on here. Looks like we went from a 15 millisecond ping to a 25 millisecond ping, which isn't huge, but it could make a difference in some cases. So that's kind of the gist with Smokeping, to get an idea of what your network latency looks like when pinging services, DNS providers, websites, those sorts of things, to get an idea of what's going on. So let's go ahead and get this uninstalled so that we can then reinstall it. So first thing we're going to do is close this out. And then we're going to come over to here and click on the 3 dots there and click on uninstall. And then we'll click uninstall again. So the one thing about Smokeping is that once it's installed, you're not going to start getting data for at least 10 minutes. So we're going to deploy this, and then it's not going to look like it's doing anything, but it just runs on a cron that just goes out and does these things every few minutes. So you won't actually start getting good data for at least 10 minutes after the container has been deployed. Again, like I said, we're going to use Linux servers, Smokeping here, and right there is the stack that we're going to base this off of, or the Docker compose that we're going to base this off of. But of course, first thing we need to do is an ls, and we want to do an rm-rf smokeping, like so. Oops, because I didn't run it as sudo. There we go. Now Smokeping is gone. Cool. So what we'll do, again, we're going to click on plus app. We're going to do custom install, and then we're going to fill in the blanks here. Again, if you decide that you would like to become a patron and just be able to import these rather than manually configuring everything, I will have a link in the description to become a patron where you can just download these files. So let's go ahead and put in our Docker image, which is Linux server Smokeping, their latest. I'm just going to grab, put that in there like so. This will be on port 89. Of course, you can change that to whatever you'd like it to be. Again, because I put it on port 89 there, I'm going to put port 89 there, as well as port 80 here. For volumes, we're going to need 2 different volumes. The first one will be for the configuration data, and then the other one will be for the actual data. So this will be /config. And of course, this is just mapped where I would like those files to be stored on my Raspberry Pi. So I'll do the same thing again. And then we'll say /data. And then we're going to have a couple of environmental variables. Again, this is going to be PUID, or let's do PGID first. And again, if you didn't skip the first part of this video, we'll know that our PGID and PUID are both 1000. So PUID is 1000, like so. And then scroll down. Again, you can set your memory limit, your CPU shares, and your restart policy, however you'd like to handle any of that. And once you've got all of this done, you can just click install. we'll let this pull and do its thing. And then once it's up and ready to go, we'll come back and take a look. Okay, so now we have Smokeping up and running. In theory, we can watch the CPU up here. Again, we can click on the little 3 dots there, go to settings, go to terminal and logs, click on logs, and it looks like it is starting. It's still running some stuff here, so we're going to give this a few minutes to finish up, and then hopefully here in a couple of minutes we'll be up and running and we can take a look.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we've given it a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and click on Smokeping here. Then it's going to open this up. This is good. This is what we want to see. And then, of course, we can come over here to Internet Sites. And again, like I said, we've got no data in here because it takes a while for this data to propagate. And honestly, it's one of the reasons I wanted to show the application before I actually went in and showed how to install it, was because otherwise it just takes longer to do it that way. So we've seen the data. We know that the data works. We've seen how to take a look through the data and get more information about different services, their latency versus my latency, those sorts of things. So like I mentioned a couple of times before, if you'd like to download these files, in fact, let me make sure that I do that right now so that I don't forget. If you'd like to download these files and just import them, they will be available over on Patreon if you want to jump over there and grab that. Of course, you don't have to. You can just follow along here and fill in the blanks like I showed in this video and get set up to monitor your network latency as well as your network speeds with just a couple of lightweight containers on a Raspberry Pi. So I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover in this video with regards to being able to monitor your network speeds and latencies and things like that. Hopefully you found the video helpful. Hopefully you're enjoying CasaOS. If you've been using it for a while, if you're just starting to use it, let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on CasaOS versus something like Portainer or Yacht. I'd love to hear about that. So since I keep mentioning Patreon, I do want to give a big shout out to my patrons. You know, some of you guys have been with me for like a year, some of you just a few days, and I appreciate you both, all of you, not just both of you, all of you, whichever spectrum you're on. Thank you very much for continuing to support me and the channel and me putting out this content. I really do appreciate that. Also, don't forget that channel memberships are going away the end of this month. This is December of 2021. After the end of this month, channel memberships on YouTube are going away. So if you'd like to continue to support the channel, you can do that over on Patreon or PayPal or Coffee, or there's links in the description on different ways you can do that as well. But I will say with Patreon, you will get early access to content as well as additional project files for when I do these kinds of videos. So something to consider. Of course, you don't ever have to do any of that. My content will basically always be free. I can't think of a reason why it wouldn't be free. But yeah, so if you want to support the channel, links are in the description. If you just want to hang out and watch the content, do me a favor, just give the video a thumbs up. Really would help me. But with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So as always, thanks for your time. I always appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you in the next video.